What's up, guys, and welcome to the Fire Mage Guide for 5.2. Okay, let's get right into it. Biggest changes are, as of yesterday, when the patch came out, we got a 40% buff to our dots. However, pretty much everybody uses Nether Tempest and Nether Tempest only, unless you have a ton of ads, in which case Frost Bomb is viable. Okay, other than that, it's hard to say on Living Bomb, so don't really worry about it. Nether Tempest is pretty much your way to go. Let's go through any changes that we've got. Well, Fire got a technical buff. Why? Because we can now always take Presence of Mind, and we have Scorch because Scorch is passive. So we now never have a time where we can't be casting on the move. In patch 5.1 and 5.0, what we had, the problem was we had to choose between, do we want that monster big ignite, or do we want that utility to cast Scorch while we run around? That was what it came down to. We no longer have to make that choice. We can now Presence of Mind no matter what, which means that if we have our evocation up, we can now get a minimum of 4 Pyroblast up to a maximum of roughly 6. Okay, that's really what we're going for. You can get a 7th, but it's very, very rare. So this is your first row of talents. Again, there's no other choice, guys. It's Presence of Mind or bust. You just need it. You want it. It's good. Take it. You'll see why when I show you our rotation. Again, we did pick up Flame Glow, which is a nice passive. However, judging on the fight, you are still going to use the other two occasionally. I actually prefer the other two, especially Temporal Shield. That's my favorite one because, again, it's off the GCD. It's got a nice meaty heal after any damage you take. It's just a good one. CC line, again, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't really take Ring of Frost. Level 60, Greater Invis did get a buff. However, I still like Cauterize. It allows you to make a mistake, right? And again, your bombs I went over. Invocation, Rune of Power, and Cantor's Ward. This is where it gets tricky, guys. In Cantor's Ward, because of the nerf to Invocation and Rune of Power, and Cantor's Ward became a lot stronger. You passively have 6%. If you can activate it and get it done right, you can get up to 30%. So you can actually get double the spell damage. So especially for a Fire Mage whose goal is to stack as many buffs as you can and then blow something up, that's really what you're going to be looking for. Glyph-wise, Glyph Combustion, a 100% must. The only fight where you really don't need to use this is maybe the Glyph, is maybe for Majera. The reason is those things die so quick that you really never get a full combustion off if your guild's doing it properly. Whereas if you have it unglyphed, you can technically get combustion on pretty much every single worm and really help burst that guy down. But again, I prefer to always have this Glyph on. There is a couple theory crafting ways out there to get around that, but it's almost essential. Just take it. As always, Arcane Explosion is good. Inferno Blast is very, very good. You really need Inferno Blast. The other one that most people will be using is Frostfire Bolt because, again, it makes your cast time the same time as your Fireball, which is our filler, but Frostfire Bolt has a slow attached to it, so that's why people will take that, okay? Currently, I'm using just this one for the last fight we were doing, but whatever. So let's get into the stat priorities, okay? Int, hit to cap, crit, as much crit as you can get, okay? We're using Molten Armor, definitely, but you want to stat crit. And then you want haste to the breakpoint. There's a 3056 breakpoint, and there's a 5036, I believe, are the two breakpoints that you want for combustion. So if you can get to that 5000 one, you're really going to like that one. After that, it pretty much goes crit, haste to cap, and then mastery, or there's theory crafters out there that say crit, haste to cap, then more haste, then mastery. What does our mastery do? And again, it buffs our ignite, which buffs our combustion. So that's still kind of out in the air for right now. So keep an eye on that throughout the patch. We'll probably see more information come out about that as well. Again, this is very early. I just want to get you guys kind of the basics so you can go in there and really compete in the DPS meters. The biggest thing, again, is I'm going to be using Invocation for this, but let's go over our rotation really quickly. If the countdown is 3, 2, 1, okay, so let's do our hero. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We want that fireball going out. Bam, we got our dot up. We're watching our trinket procs. Watch this, guys. Once our trinkets will proc, and of course, because we're fire, we never know. We're still not getting a crit, still not getting a crit, still not getting a crit. There it is. Bam. And now, Presence of Mind. 2 combustions. Press it again. 3, 4. Okay, as you can see, now, you'll get used to your own numbers. Okay. I obviously didn't do that one quite correctly, but you'll see the point is you try to get those 4 off in a row, get your ignite as high as you can. Now I've seen this number up to 130, 140 on fights like Horadon once he's got that 200% buff. On fights like Jinrock, I've seen just monster ignites to where your combustion is hitting for an absolute truck. But again, guys, remember with the 10% reduced damage to Pyroblast, your ignites are not going to be quite what they used to be in, say, 5.1 when we were all playing fire, okay? So keep in mind that your ignite will not be as high. What you need to make sure that you have, okay, is a stop casting macro and then a cast combustion, because once this number hits, a number that you like, you want to hit that immediately. You don't want to wait for anything else. You don't want to get greedy with it. If it hits a really high number, knock it out, okay? That's your safest bet. Again, I compare fire mages to a gambling add-on. Sometimes you're going to hit money, and sometimes you're going to go broke. There's just no way around it. That's just how fire works. You will get a lot of crits and a ton of pyroblasts. You will get no crits and no pyroblasts. It's just the way it happens, okay, guys? There's really nothing you can do about it. I'm obviously right now I reforged and regemmed last night into Frost because Frost is right now the best spec, at least at my item level. Until you get to item level about 525, 2 best in slot gear, then fire really skyrockets, and and arcane actually scales extremely well too at that gear level. But until you're to that 525 to 522 gear level, Frost is going to be the higher DPS spec. The really nice thing, what Blizzard's finally done for the mages, is now we don't have to relearn every spec halfway through a patch, right? Most of the gear that you're going to be picking up and throwing off Thunder is crit gear and hit gear. Okay, there's crit haste gear, but mainly there's hit crit gear, which is great for Frost and great for fire. It's obviously better for fire, which is why fire scales so well. But you can reforge that crit into haste and get 2 of your best stats all right there while keeping your hit. It's just an overall good way to go. So I'm going to tell you right now that once you get to that higher item level, when you start doing heroics and getting some of that heroic best in slot gear, try out fire, because you're really going to see it scale really well once you can get that crit rating high up there. Like I'm talking 35, 36, 37, 38% crit. Then you're really going to start seeing that, okay? But like I said, guys, fire's a lot of fun. My favorite spec in the game, by far. Favorite spec in the game. It's just a lot of RNG. The nice thing is now we have utility. We can now cast Scorch on the move no matter what we're doing. We have Scorch. Okay, we have our level 90 talents, which are still crap, but, you know, Blizzard knows that. They're going to fix it. So we have utility to cast on the move. We always have dots we can keep up. We have our, you know, our ignite damage that's always ticking. We have our combustions. We just have a lot of utility for on-the-move DPS. We're a very mobile DPS class. We're not like an arcane mage or a frost mage where if there's a heavy movement fight, you see us start to drop a little bit because we can't keep up with our damage. It's more of a, we can pretty much cope with any situation and still put out decent numbers. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to warn you, until you can get at least 30% crit, you're really going to struggle with this spec, because you just won't be getting the crits to really enjoy the class. Because remember, you want to try to line up trinkets, line up everything else. I've seen a lot of guys with lower gear levels switch to unused trinkets, solely to try to set up everything together, and it seems to really help their DPS. So that might be an option too if you have access to those unused trinkets like the ones from Operation Shield Wall. Maybe take a look at getting some of those. I'm going to warn you, it's one of those specs that you're just going to play. There's going to be one attempt where you're going to do insane numbers and beat everyone on the meters, and there's going to be other attempts where you do crap. It's just going to happen. If you're okay with that gambling mentality and you really enjoy that like I do, you're really going to like the fire spec, okay? But that's the fire mage guide. That's the basics for it. Hope you guys enjoyed the guide, and again, we'll see you in the next one.